Do I have any advice on self-love? Yeah, I mean, I have lots of thoughts on self-love. Because, I mean, shoot, it's taken me a hot minute to figure it out. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. For a long time, I didn't love myself. I didn't know where to begin loving myself. And I think that comes with time. I think when you have been pushed to your last wits, and everything around you realize you can't really rely upon to the fullest extent, or at least the only person that you feel that you can trust is yourself. And so to give yourself self-love, self-trust, self-worth, you lose what you've built on someone else. You built it on someone else's personality. You didn't build yourself, you built them up. And so it's so important to know your level of importance of your own self. You have 2 feet, you can stand on it.
Hi friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It is Wednesday, July 31st, 2024, and I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Yesterday, I let you guys know that news broke that Gypsy had been cited, that's right, cited by her probation officer or parole officer for speaking to her friends that she left back in Chillicothe Women's Correctional Facility. Obviously, Gypsy is one that loves to play narratives and loves to get out in front of things, and so she went live last night. She didn't address any of it, but she did mention in her live stream that she doesn't live with Ken. She hasn't moved in with Ken, and she just stays with him every so often. She was also at her parents' house, and apparently her room was quite messy. She admitted she will have to raise her child at her parents' house, but she claimed that her PO was allowing her to spend some time at Ken's. She also took a little bit of aim at her ex-husband Ryan, for going live and not being respectful about Ken, even though Ken was the one in the same live stream sending Mr. Ryan flowers and roses. All right, so this video is actually twofold. Gypsy is getting a lot of heat because I showed you all the PR strategy that they have. They're going to try to make her an influencer. In her live stream last night, Gypsy tried to change directions and claim that she wanted a completely different job. She said she didn't want a job that would be associated with being an influencer, but instead she wants to do this. Check it out.
What is my dream career? I mean, honestly, I would like to go into like activities coordinator. So like I spent a long time and a lot of time of my life in children's hospitals, and I've seen that they have like each hospital has an activities coordinator for like a movie night, a bingo night. They would bring like therapy dogs to the hospital. So I'd like to be like the one that like coordinates all that stuff and plans fun stuff for the kids to do, you know?
Because Gypsy's getting called out because she's trying to be an influencer, I find it interesting now that she's trying to hide now behind wanting to help kids, right? She's claiming that she wants to work with sick children in a hospital and plan activities for them. I don't know that she would be hired by any hospital due to the fact that she has a felony conviction for unaliving her mother. I'm pretty confident that specific conviction would probably eliminate her from holding any position working with children, which kind of begs the question, how is she even going to be able to be a parent with that kind of conviction? I recognize people get out all the time and people move on and do stuff, but that's a very serious conviction. And Gypsy has to date really minimized her role, minimized her responsibility in what she did and is continuously deflected and tried to blame her co-defendant for all of it, even though she's the one that basically convinced him to do it for her and told him that it was the only way that they could actually be together. When he kept resisting, as I told you yesterday, she convinced him she was pregnant. Then she said that she had a miscarriage, blamed the miscarriage on her mother for changing her feeding tube, and then came the unaliving of Dee Dee Blanchard. She had a lot of opportunities to just leave and to not actually be a part of that crime and to just leave, call the police, or just walk away. But part of me believes the reason why she didn't was because her and her mom were involved in a fraud scheme that even though Gypsy has claimed that she wasn't sick and she didn't know that she wasn't sick, she actually did know by the time she was an adult that she could walk. She knew that she could eat. She also knew that she didn't have cancer, even though she claims that she didn't know that until she got that from her doctor or from her lawyer. And she didn't have seizures. Here's the thing. She said in an interview years ago, she said her lawyer told her that she was otherwise healthy. It's weird how a lawyer, a literal lawyer who's not a doctor, could tell her that she's healthy when a doctor is a doctor and a lawyer is a lawyer. She has had doctor's appointments and she claims she has no issues, although that's not true. We already know that she has a microdeletion, and that was confirmed in 2011 through a blood test by a genetics doctor in Missouri. So she wants to work with children. That's her new grift. And that actually makes me very, very, very scared. It also makes me very, very scared for her to have a child. So as you know, Gypsy's going through a divorce, and she was actually in court a couple days ago. There was a hearing for incidental matters in the case against her husband, Ryan. What I think is really strange is I just checked the notes of this case, and Ryan was live on Sunday night, and he was talking all kinds of mess about Ken, and he was defending Gypsy, and he was claiming that Gypsy was still in love with him. The next day, he said that he had to go to work, and school was going to be going back, and so teachers have to get ready for the school year. At that hearing on Monday morning, he was not there, nor was his attorney. In fact, no one from his side was represented in the court. So Gypsy testified along with her stepmother, which is very weird. Why is her stepmother inserting herself into Gypsy's divorce? Regardless, the notes from the court case say this. It says Gypsy Rose was present and represented by her attorney. The defendant, Ryan, was absent and unrepresented by counsel. The introduction of evidence began with the testimony of Gypsy Rose Anderson, Kristy Blanchard, and Jenny Armand, with the entire record filed into evidence. The court, for reasons orally assigned, granted the termination of community property. Ms. Giroux will prepare and submit reflecting the court's ruling. No one was there from his side to testify, and they basically terminated all property, community property, meaning as of Monday, they don't own anything jointly together. That part of the divorce is over. They're not divorced yet, but their community property is severed. So Ryan didn't even show up. Ryan's attorneys didn't show up, and no one testified for Ryan. It's very weird that Ryan he avoided service. He's dodging service. He clearly doesn't want to get a divorce, and he's making this very hard for her. And then when he's supposed to show up at court, which this is in court 2 hours away from where Ryan lives, he's not there and no one's representing him. This is a man that's supposedly a teacher. You would think this guy would actually be more responsible. I think he's honestly just trying to hurt her by not going through the divorce. And listen, I'm not on Gypsy's side, but it's irresponsible not to show up for court. And he knew that court was happening. So I think it's weird that Kristy is actually testifying here, and why Kristy would need to testify about Gypsy's marriage and her community property. However, there were contracts here that Gypsy and Ryan signed, and they were for the book, they were for the show, they were with Lifetime, okay, for the 2 separate series, the Prison Confessions, and for Life After Lockup. And then she has a book coming. And then she has a book coming out in January. So Kristy's involvement in financials is interesting. Kristy is where Gypsy lives, but Kristy's hands have been all over Gypsy's money for years. And I have some tea for you about this. Now, a lot of you that are not new to this story know that Gypsy had a falling out with her stepmom years ago. And it was because she was accusing her stepmom of exploiting her for money and being basically just like her mother. In fact, she actually got mad at Kristy and she sent an email to friends saying, "This message is to my closest friends and family. Due to differences in opinions and life choices, my stepmother, Gypsy Blanchard, and I are no longer on speaking terms. I'm asking that the updates that I choose to share with a very select few on how I'm doing be kept private and stay within an A to B conversation. I do not want any new updates on my current life events or how I am doing on a daily, getting back to Kristy or Francesca Maselli Fancy. I'm trying to keep some order and maintain some privacy in my life, and I will not share my life with people who exploit me for fame and attention for themselves. Thank you. Hugs, Gypsy." Now, she and her stepmother reconciled about a month later, once Kristy cut ties with this Fancy Maselli, who is the blogger that she was suing for defamation. And that case was dismissed because they sued in the wrong place, and Gypsy has not refiled that case literally anywhere. So that was what she was saying about Kristy back then, that all she wanted was to exploit me for fame and for attention and for money. Well, I told you yesterday about someone that was friends with Gypsy and how Gypsy was communicating with people in jail and she wasn't supposed to be communicating with people in jail, and she was talking to her friends and she was doing all kinds of things that were violating her conditions of her parole. And that friend told me that we were comparing notes, is what I'm going to say here, because I was having conversations with Kristy, and Kristy was telling me things about Gypsy that were very negative, okay? And then I asked her what Gypsy was telling her about Kristy. And what we've concluded is that these two women that on the surface and in the public are saying that they love each other and that she's like my mom, it's not that way behind closed doors. So this is what I can share. I spoke to Kristy on the phone, and you can all believe me or not, but I was friendly with her for years. And this was a couple weeks ago after I had been very concerned about Gypsy's behavior online, and I was disagreeing with the fact that they were profiting so blatantly and not helping anyone, and disagreed with the way that she was fighting with people, disagreed with things that she was saying, disagreeing with some of her language. There was a lot she was doing that I just did not agree with. I also didn't agree with them spending so much time going after haters. I just thought it was like, why are you spending all this time worried about what other people say? Then it occurred to me they're doing that because the people that are actually speaking about them that they don't like are kind of telling the truth. Now, Fancy has a capacity to see things very differently than me. She does have some things right in her view, but other views, we don't have the same opinion. But Fancy has medical records that really disprove a lot of what Gypsy and Kristy have said for years about what happened to Gypsy, and using this to frame the narrative of why Dee Dee was a horrible person. And so they don't want anyone to see those records because they don't want people to know that the Munchausen's by proxy concept was floated by the defense as a theory. It wasn't necessarily ever diagnosed because she died. She can't be diagnosed for something once she's dead. Her patterns by experts don't necessarily fit all the prongs of what's called Munchausen's by proxy because she wasn't actually making her daughter sick. She was exaggerating. What she was doing was called malingering by proxy, which is fraud. She was trying to get people to give her things based on false diagnoses to get attention and free gifts. So they don't, and that's not to say that Dee Dee was a good mom. Fraud is wrong. Making your daughter fake things is wrong. Making your daughter, go to doctor's appointments and not stand up and not do anything and putting her hands over her ears so she can't talk, none of that's okay. Telling doctors your daughter is cognitively impaired when there's no evidence to support it. There's a lot of things Dee Dee did that were just atrocious. But the surgeries, many of them weren't actually because Gypsy didn't need them. She actually had valid reasons, and doctors had valid reasons for them. So they've been able to, Kristy and Gypsy, through the defense strategy, create a narrative that completely discounts Gypsy's responsibility in the crime, frames Nick as the perpetrator, and then makes her the victim of Dee Dee, thus being the victim of both of them and the victim of all of it. When the truth is, yes, she was a victim of child abuse to an extent by her mom, and yes, she had a very controlling mother, and yes, her mother committed fraud, and yes, none of that is okay, right? But that doesn't excuse unaliving anyone. I asked the friend, back in 2019, Gypsy had made comments that Kristy was exploiting her, and she felt like Kristy was being like her mom, using her for money. And I said, did Gypsy ever mention that to you? Did she ever say anything to you about Kristy, about what Kristy was after, what she wanted? And the friend said that Gypsy allegedly told her that she's well aware that Kristy is using her for money, that Kristy is after fame and money, and that she's around for fame and money. But Gypsy wants fame and money too. So it's like they're in the same kind of dynamic she had with her mother. So Gypsy and her mom, Dee Dee, were part of a con once she became an adult, where she basically pretended like she couldn't walk, even though she knew she could, and she knew she didn't have cancer. Now she's putting up a fraud with her stepmother, acting like some of the stuff that she went through as a child wasn't necessary when it was, and then perpetuating a theory for a defense attorney, it's never been diagnosed, a theory, and put that theory out as fact when it's not a fact. Gaslighting the public into believing that Gypsy had no other choice, thus creating sympathy for Gypsy and making everyone feel like she couldn't have done anything else. So she's really, in many ways, doing the same con that she had with Dee Dee, but now she's employing Kristy. But she has the same harsh feelings about Kristy, apparently, as she did her mom. They are butting heads on a lot of things. That's what the friend said. And part of the reason why Gypsy bounced from, Ryan to Ken was because she really doesn't want to live in a house with Kristy and Rod. I mean, she's 32. Who wants to live with their parents? Or she's 33 now. So she isn't a huge fan of Kristy because she thinks she's exploiting her. She thinks she's using her for money and that she's only after her for fame. That's the mindset of Gypsy Rose Blanchard. She thinks everyone's after her for fame and everyone wants her money. So what I was actually told on the flip side of Kristy is things aren't so peachy between her and Gypsy. She told me, and again, like both of these women lie, so you can just do whatever you want with this, but she had been discussing with me about how Gypsy has been making the family and everyone's life around them chaotic. It's been extremely difficult to navigate and manage her impulsivity, her bad choices, the fact that she's basically online starting a fire and then another fire starts and then another fire starts, and they don't even have time to put out one fire before another fire starts. Now, this is true to a point, but Kristy's also online with Gypsy starting fires with her best friend, Bree. So some of the comments that Gypsy has made online regarding her sex life with Ken have been very frustrating to the family, specifically her sister, Mia, who thinks it's really just doesn't agree with the fact that the infidelity, doesn't agree with cheating, thinks marriage is more serious than a piece of paper. And so Gypsy got in big trouble for making this comment about this very gross sexual comment about oral copulation with Ken. And apparently that resulted in a huge fight. And she said that she had to get in Gypsy's face and they were screaming and yelling at each other. And then Gypsy told her that she was being like her mother. Kind of like what Gypsy did on the show, where Gypsy instigated Ryan by talking about her sex life on the show. And then when Ryan confronted her about it, she immediately said, "You're being just like my mother." Apparently, they are also very well aware of the fact that Gypsy has severe antisocial personality issues and doing very narcissistic antisocial things like pitting people against each other, finding glory in drama, getting people to get mad at each other, pitting people against each other, and lacking remorse for any of her actions. And as Kristy told me, Gypsy can lie to your face with no conscience. And she will only backtrack if you confront her and only after going at her hard. And then she just changes her answer to whatever she thinks you want to hear. So Gypsy then, because Kristy is so after money, apparently got very mad at Gypsy because she signed her PR agreement with Red Banyan. For whatever reason, Kristy told me that Gypsy's Red Banyan contract, and this is coming from Kristy, and allegedly, I don't know if this is true, she said she was paying Red Banyan $7,500 a month for this contract to help her with PR. On top of that, she said that she had hired a manager. Her defense attorney, Mike Stanfield, yeah, he's her personal manager now. He's not her attorney anymore. He's managing her career. If that doesn't add a whole like level of weirdness into this, so even Mike, Mr. Attorney Man, is now her manager, which is so freaking weird and disgusting because why? So he's now profiting off of her fame. So again, he's the one that floated this Munchausen's by proxy idea, and now he's getting paid allegedly $5,000 a month from Gypsy to manage her career. Between the two contracts, she's out $12,500 a month, and that made Kristy livid because Gypsy apparently isn't making that much a month. She can't support that long term. She doesn't have the kind of income to support a PR company of that amount of money plus a manager of $5,000. It's like she just signed these contracts, according to Kristy, didn't talk to her about it, and Kristy was mad because of what? Money. And now where was Kristy in court talking about? Money with Gypsy. Rod and Kristy have never had a lot of money. He works as a captain for a ship, and he is on the offshore. They have a very modest house in Cutoff, Louisiana, which is a very small town. They have never had like a lot of anything. They're not by any means poor, but they're not wealthy. So this is a big opportunity for them to cash in. So I knew something was off in December because Gypsy was about to get out of prison, and it was explained to me that a new show was coming on. And obviously I wasn't privy to all of the details because they had contracts and NDAs, so a lot of stuff was kept under wraps. And when the show was coming out, Kristy explained to me that Gypsy was going to have this show come out. She was going to write a book. She was going to have a bigger book coming out. And then she would have a second reality show coming out in the summer. And I was like, why are you doing all of this? How is this going to help her acclimate to the world? This seems excessive. How is this going to help her? And she said, well, allegedly, Melissa Moore, who is one of the executive producers of the show and who co-authored the book, allegedly told them that Gypsy needs to go get the bag. Go get the bag. Everyone else is profiting off your story. Go get the bag yourself. So I'm like, okay, all right. I mean, clearly everyone talks about the story. People are making money. But the difference is those people that are actually talking about the story didn't commit the crime. So there's no laws preventing those people from profiting. But Gypsy and her family profiting off this crime and going to get the bag and exploiting a death and then pushing a false narrative about what happened to make Gypsy the victim so they can make more money and then have her attorney basically be her manager now. It's just all so disgusting. So when people ask me what changed, it's like when you have been looking at a ticking time bomb about to explode and you have been pushing back and pushing back and pushing back and telling them, I don't agree with this, this is wrong, people aren't going to like this. I mean, all the things that you were feeling, I was telling them were going to happen, and it happened. And when I realized I can't defend this anymore, I can't even support it anymore, I couldn't even privately support it because privately it was so chaotic, it was so disgusting and toxic. There was no reason for me to be involved. And then as I started learning more and more about Gypsy's lies, I was like, this is so awful what you all are doing. So now my path forward, and some people are saying you're being obsessive. It's not about being obsessive. It's about reporting the truth. Reporting the truth about what friends are telling me, reporting the truth about the documents that I'm reading now, reporting the truth about the people that have others that I've had experience with the Blanchards that have been similar to mine. And there's a lot of us that have had the exact same experience with them. And it's about reporting that to try to, in a way, expose this for what it is on a platform that I have, knowing the information that I have, to show people what this is. I was conned, the public is getting conned, and it's awful. So Gypsy and Kristy are basically in a scheme to defraud all of you to believe something that's not true. Even though they now know the truth about Gypsy's health, they know the truth that she has the microdeletion. They found that out in January. They understand that some of her procedures were now necessary, and they're still running this con, right? They also, because this was her defense. She can't like go back on her defense now, right? But they also have a network that they're trying to get in the bag. So Gypsy getting pregnant is to try to secure another season, which is what her friend said. She's pretty confident that's why Gypsy got pregnant, was because she wanted to stay on the show because it's another season. Gypsy said last night she didn't know if there was going to be another season, but frankly, if she had a contract, she wouldn't be able to tell you guys anyway. And they're not known to tell the truth. So watching this all play out is been very horrifying. It's horrifying for a lot of people that have been conned by them, and it's horrifying once you realize the con and you realize that Gypsy's just continuing the con of what her mom did, and now she has a new con partner, Kristy, and they are after money. Mike is after money. Everyone's after money. This isn't real. The story isn't real. And Gypsy, behind the scenes, is a chaotic mess, creating chaos in her family. People in her family are all fighting. When I said to Kristy last week, a week and a half ago, it's been a while. And I said to her, you know, Kristy, if she has a baby and she puts him on social media, that's going to get her opened up to allegations. People are going to call CPS constantly. Her fitness as a mother is going to be questioned. Her exaggeration, like her mother, is going to be viewed very closely. And Gypsy is already exhibiting signs of exaggerating things just like her mother. Like she has the What to Expect When You're Expecting books. She's reading and Googling every day about symptoms. She's diagnosing herself with things constantly, just like her mother did. And it's different to be excited about the birth, but she's going down the same path as her mom. And she's already talking about having, are my hormones levels okay? She's already being that kind of hypochondriac faker that she was before. And it's, you want to know about your body and what's going to happen to your body. But at the same time, she's got a history of malingering with her mother. And now she could potentially use her child to malinger and repeat the pattern. So I said, CPS is going to be involved. And Kristy's like, oh, I have no doubt that CPS is going to be involved. So her stepmom is well aware that CPS is going to be involved. Her stepmom also is well aware that, or at least she told me, that she doesn't feel like Gypsy is ready to be a mom, capable of being a mom, doesn't believe Gypsy can take care of a child, doesn't think that Gypsy will be able to manage any of this, which is going to just leave the child with who? Ken? No, Ken's not. He's in this for fame too. The whole thing is just sick, and it's a sick miscarriage of justice. And I'm going to end this with this for my final drop of tea. The friend also mentioned to me, and this is alleged, take it for what it's worth, it's entertainment, friends, that she was having a conversation with Gypsy about her own abuse and was talking about something that happened with her perpetrator and something that she had done to defend herself. And she said that out of nowhere, Gypsy just said, well, I didn't stay in the bathroom the whole time. Gypsy said that she was cowering in a fetal position and she didn't leave the bathroom until Nick came to get her. Dee Dee's family said that was a lie. And Dee Dee's family believes that Gypsy was involved in the stabbing. Nick denied covering Gypsy's mom's body with a blanket or placing a stuffed animal by her head. And then Gypsy allegedly says to a friend, I wasn't in the bathroom the whole time. Gypsy got away with this and conned everyone, and it's disgusting. And she can't be retried for this. So the best anyone can do is try to spread the truth. What are your thoughts? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and click the bell so you never miss a video. Bye, everyone.